Hi, and welcome to another video on object-oriented programming in C#, with me, Marinus Toman. Okay, so now that we know a few things, we've had an introduction to classes and objects and class members. The next thing really that we want to talk about is accessibility to our classes, or to our class members, I should say. So some methods and properties are meant to be called or accessed from code outside a class, so this is known as client code. Other methods and properties might be only for use inside the class, so you know, the private to the class itself, and there'll never be any need to be, you know, for that code to be accessed from outside the class. So it's very important to limit the accessibility of your code so that only the intended client code can reach it. So only the code that you intend for the client to use, or you know, as I would always call it, the user of the code. You can specify how accessible your types and their members are to client code by using the following access modifiers. So we have some of them might be familiar from, if you're familiar with Java or C++. So public, protected, internal, private, and private protected. If we have no keyword, if we leave it out, if we have no accessor keyword there at all, then the default accessibility is just going to be private. So by default we get, you know, as secure as possible. So you can go through, you know, and find out, you know, a bit more information if you want about each of these keywords, but what we're really, you know, we really only care about a couple of them. So some of them, you know, are going to be for specialized cases, you know, when you're working on like web servers and stuff like that, where your security has to be really high. But for the purposes just of this module, we're only going to look at the main kind of common ones that are used. So the public keyword, this is an access modifier which is used to set access level visibility for classes, fields, methods and properties. Okay, and these are the common ones that we're going to be using. So public, we'll be using that a lot. So this is code that we want basically accessible from outside our class. The private keyword, this is code that we want that's only accessible from within the class. Okay, so variables or fields and methods that we don't want to share with the client code. Protected then is code that's accessible within the same class or in a class that's inherited. So we'll talk about inheritance later on in the semester, but there's times when you might want to use the protected keyword. And then internal is code that's only accessible within its own assembly but not from another assembly. So we'll learn more about this later as well. So there are also these two combinations of these four main keywords, which is protected internal and private internal. So they just give you a combination, you know, of both of these functions. But really the ones that we're going to be talking most about are going to be public and private. Sometimes protected whenever we get into looking at inheritance and, you know, more complex class structures. We'll be looking at making things protected as well, but for now we're just going to be using public and private. So as you can see, looking at this example, if we leave out the keyword for the class, so the accessor, like we said earlier, is for classes, functions, fields, variables, absolutely everything. Okay, so if we leave this out by default, then that means this is a private class. So it can only be accessed basically when we're putting our main inside. You know, we're already inside the class, so we don't need to access this from outside. So this is going to work grand. So if we have this private string model, then that's only going to be able to be seen within this class. Okay, so because the main method in this instance is in this class, we can see that the output will be, we'll be able to have access to this. But if we try to access this from outside the class, okay, so let's say our class was program, or char, sorry, and we had our private string, and then we had the main in a different class called program, then this line would work okay, but the next line then would say, hold on, char.model is inaccessible due to its protection level, because it's assigned but its value is never used. This is this is more of a warning, this second one. But what it's basically saying is you don't have access, that you don't have the control to access this, because this is only private to the class. So for us to be able to do, for this line to work, this keyword would have to be public. Okay, so we would have to make that, like this example here. So if we declare it public, then we can access it, okay, outside. But this is bad practice, so we should never really, especially with our fields. We can make methods public, okay, because we want, people, we want the client to be able to use our methods, and we will give them way to access our fields as well, but typically we don't want to just make our fields public, because they're more insecure, basically, because now what this person could do is start to change the data that's in here in the actual class. So any other class that wanted to create this data could potentially be compromised. So why do we need access modifiers? Well, really is to control the visibility of members, and by visibility what we mean is the security level. So like this here, if we didn't want anybody to see this piece of data inside the class, then we could just make it private, and then they can never access it, like this. Okay, so that they can't see it. And also the main one is to achieve encapsulation. So this is just the process of making sure that sensitive data is hidden from users. So this is done by declaring fields as private. Okay, like I said, this should never be done, because what you're doing is you're basically avoiding encapsulation, and we don't want to do that. One of the benefits of using objects is this encapsulation, property that we get. We can stuff everything in. If you think about encapsulation like or a class like an envelope, okay, we can stuff things into the envelope, and then what we can do is we can have it all, we can seal the envelope, and we can just say, we can put this kind of sticker on the outside of the envelope to say this is everything that's in here, but you can't see what's inside. Okay, so that's one of the benefits of encapsulation, and of course, we need that, so we do, because there's some data that our programs have to be able to be secure. They have to be able to stop, client code changing things, basically on the inside. So if we just do no keyword, then that means by default these are private, and that's why it's like that in C# and many other languages. If you leave the keyword out, then it's going to be private just by default, which is the safest option we want. We do want everything to be private. Okay, so that's basically everything for the access modifiers. I would say go over and have a look, at what Microsoft themselves say about these different modifiers, the different keywords. So look at the private keyword, and they'll give you, examples here when you like this here. So if you leave it out, then you're going to get private access by default. Okay, and then they give you examples and all of that good stuff. Okay, so remember, we care about really just private and public. That's what we're going to start with for now. And a rule of thumb is to always have your fields private. Okay, and most of your methods are going to be public. But if we don't keep our fields private, then we're losing that encapsulation feature that we gain from, having our classes, having our programs split up into classes and objects. Okay, so that's everything for the video. Thanks for watching.